Hey everybody. So after I got married, like I said, I decided it was time to be a father. I also thought it was time to be a provider, not just for my kids, but for my wife. And I knew I needed some kind of employment that was a little bit better than the, seasonal, part-time kind of bullcrap work that I did other than playing guitar and just having a good time partying. So, all good things must, well, maybe not come to an end, but they got to go on the back burner. So, started thinking when I was 12 years old. My brothers are my closest brother is 13 years older than me, and the other brother is almost 15 years older than me, and so it kind of gave me an opportunity to see a few little things. I saw my dad at work. He worked maintenance at a factory, and this place got hot. I mean, you're talking nearly 200 degrees in some parts of this factory, and he would have to work in that. And then in the wintertime it'd be cold, and outside he'd have to go outside and work on things outside. And I thought, man, it seems like that's a miserable way to make money. I mean, he made really good money, but it seemed like a miserable thing to have to do every day of your life. You're either hotter than hell or colder than death. So then I saw my other brother, John. You all know John. John worked at a brickyard, and I saw the brickyard he worked at was close enough to our home that once in a great while I could actually see him out there rolling I'd call it a wheelbarrow, but it wasn't a wheelbarrow, but it was like a big cart he pushed with brick on it, and he'd push them into these kilns, and it'd get heated, and you're talking so hot, and it was such a dirty job. He'd come home, I mean, just covered in clay and dirt and filth, and you could see how much he was sweating and how hard he worked. He made good money, but man, he worked awfully hard every day, and long hours. At 12 years old, I had my oldest brother had lucked into a job that was a municipal job where he basically ran third shift at a wastewater treatment plant. And I got to see that too. As a matter of fact, he would pay me on weekends, days that I didn't have to go to school and that during the summer and stuff, to actually help him do it, because he had trouble staying awake, and I was always just the kind of person I was up all night all the time anyway. Even at that early of an age, he'd give me $2 an hour to come to work with him and help keep him awake and watch the place when he did fall asleep. It was awesome. It was a job where you had heat in the wintertime, you had AC in the summertime. You spent most of your time in like an office kind of set environment with these great big panel walls, looked like a spaceship, and you watched for if a light blinked and came on, then you had to wake him up. Hey Tom, tell him, so he could call up a crew and go out and fix something. Yeah. And every 2 hours you had to go take a walk around the place and check on things and all that. And I learned how to do all that. He wouldn't let me do that by myself at 12 years old, but I learned how to do it. And when I was older and married and started thinking about what can I do for work, I compared those three jobs. Those are the ones I knew about. And I said, man, I want that municipal job. And I started working towards it. I worked hard. I did it volunteer for a while. and I did it seasonal, and I did it part-time, and I just tried to keep my foot in the door as much as I could while I went, and I paid for all most guys get it, they look into it, and the municipality will pay for their schooling and everything. I didn't have that. I actually had to save up what little money I could, and I paid for my own trade schooling and everything until I got to a point where I actually got a full-time job doing it, which was something I didn't realize was doing that every day for the rest of your life. That is boring. And sometimes a job that's boring could be worse than a job that you work hard at. But what I learned was you can keep yourself entertained by doing things like, correspondence schooling and stuff. I actually got myself 2 associate's degrees in electronics just to have something to do during the boring shifts, and got a private investigation certificate and a few other things. I just did things because you were making a little bit more money. You had some money to waste. You could do that to keep yourself occupied. It was either that or read books and stuff. And to me, I'd rather study and get some kind of accreditation than just sit and read The Stand or whatever, which I did. I did read all the Stephen King's books, but that was the next thing, But now you're getting closer to the now because I did that for over 40 years. I should have retired long before I was able to, but I made a couple of mistakes, and I cashed in my PERS to buy a house trailer of all things, only like 5.5 years in at one point. And then they cut my hours back at Caldwell, where I was I guess you'd call it I was an operator, a regular class 3 operator, which I really loved it, but I needed more money. So I started looking for more money, and there was a place called Caddis who I was gonna, my idea was I was gonna stay at Caldwell. I loved working at Caldwell. I just wasn't making enough money to make ends meet. And so I just needed a little bit more money, so I applied for Caddis. They needed a superintendent, and they wouldn't let me stay at both places. I had to work at one or the other. So Caddis paid like $6 an hour more, and I was able to make my bills, there. So I did what they wanted me to do. I left Caldwell, went to Caddis to become superintendent of that water plant, which was one of the worst things I ever had to do. I mean, the guys there wouldn't work with you. Well, there was a couple of good guys there, but the ones that should have been the best were the worst. They did everything they could. They resented me, basically. They resented me coming in there and being their boss, because all they saw was just this guy off the street comes in. They didn't see me working for 30-some years before I went there. But it was tough, and every time you got a day off, you got called in 3 or 4 times. I mean, and it was a long drive to work, It was like a 40, 45, 50-minute drive to work and back. And wow, it was tough. And I'm going over my time, but that's kind of, I got to, and this is going to be a little long. So what happened was, finally one time I got it in my head that I'm going to take a couple of days off. I do not care. And the days I picked, really, I loused it up. But it was in August, and I made sure that I wasn't going to get called. And I took off on a little boat with my brother and my son, one of my sons, and it was 105 degrees, and all I brought with me was Pepsi to drink. And we went out there and had some problems with the motors, actually the batteries, trolling motors, and ended up trying to paddle my way back. And my son says I paddled for, I don't know how he knows this, but he said 47 minutes. Paddled for 47. And then I got sick. I got overheated. I remember all I wanted was water or ice or something. I remember thinking that. And then I got sick and I started throwing up like seasick. But I mean, I was in a boat all the time. That was part of my job, was being on a boat out in a lake somewhere. I did it at least once a week in Caddis. Every Friday went out and got in a boat, and there was things you had to do out in the lake. And but I mean, that was just part of my job, was being on the water. And so I didn't get seasick, but it looked like I was. And actually what had happened was I got a heat stroke, and that heat stroke triggered 2 actual strokes, which is, I didn't even know that was possible. That's what happened. And I died. I died on the way to the hospital. And at that point, I was fat too. I was eating the standard American diet, thinking that I was doing the right thing, to, listening to what the doctors told me to do. And the more I listened to what the doctors told me to do, the sicker I got, the fatter I got, and the worse things got. And it ended up killing me. So I'll cut this one off there, and we'll tell you the rest of this part of this workload part of the story on the next video. How about that? You can really learn about what's happening and where I'm at right now, and why I'm going to be doing this big surprising thing that I'm going to be doing. All right. So hey, thanks for putting up with me, and I hope you have a good week. It's Monday morning. So take it easy.